This video is so different than what I normally do, and I made a decision. We're gonna start a new series on this channel. I'm just kind of burnt out on like talking about products, doing makeup, doing this, doing that. I want to do something different, and it's a new year and I'm ready to make changes. I was playing around with some of the settings on my camera, so if they look weird, I apologize. I'm also trying new settings on my mic, so hopefully this works out. I won't know until I edit, and Lord knows I'm not going to refilm this video. I decided I want to start a series on this channel. I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, to be determined, but I just want to talk about random shit. Like random things that I am like Googling and I'm like, how did this happen? And how did that happen? And how did this come about? And where did this come from? And how on earth did we determine this was supposed to be this way? If you could see my Google history, I think people would be concerned because I Google the most random stuff. I'm a curious gal. I have to know, you know? Today I thought we could talk about Valentine's. And this is very on trend for me that this video is not going to be up by Valentine's Day because I can't follow a schedule. That's just not who I am as a person. My plan was to have this up on Valentine's Day. It's just not going to happen. And you know what? It works out because what I'm going to say in this video kind of makes sense for me to not put it up on Valentine's Day. It'll probably actually be up after Valentine's Day, but that's very on trend for me, so it's okay. This is what made me think about this, is with Valentine's Day coming up, a lot of people were like, oh, well, you have a baby now. What are you going to do for Valentine's Day with your son? Is your husband going to do something special for you because you gave him a child? And I'm like, whoa, hold up. Just follow me. I know it doesn't make sense, but just follow me here. Why, just because I had a baby and I gave my husband like an heir to the throne, like I created a baby. First of all, I didn't make the baby for him. I made the baby for us. I just think it's so strange that Valentine's Day is a thing. Does anybody else feel that way, or is it just me? And nothing against love. I love love. Okay, I'm married. I'm in love. My husband texted me Happy Valentine's Day this morning, and I actually forgot it was Valentine's Day. I'm pretty sure that's what I said in the text. Did anybody do candygrams in school? Because I very vividly remember in school that around Valentine's Day, you could buy candygrams for your friends. This was what, 15, 20 years ago when I was in middle school. It was just always like, I feel like a popularity contest. I just remember it being like a big show. Like when it was Valentine's Day, the day finally came, everybody got their candygrams. It was like that scene in Mean Girls where Gretchen Wilson didn't get anything and all the girls got something.
Good, none for Gretchen Wieners, bye.
And she was left out, and like everybody was staring at her and she felt so awkward because she wasn't popular. And that's how it was when I was in school too. Somebody would come in the middle of class and distribute them to everybody. You got to see how many people got what. And it was just so weird. Like the concept now that I'm an adult is so weird. Back then when I was a kid, I probably like was just waiting to see how many I got. I'm sure I was so excited. I mean, I truly don't remember, but I can imagine, you know, you're like young and you're excited and you get these candies and it's like, oh, I'm popular, everybody loves me. And I probably got like maybe 2, 3, 5 max from friends, and I just remember it being like a thing and everybody being like, well, how many did you get and how many did you get? And I was like, where did this come from? Why is this day a thing? That's what I want to know. That's where my brain goes. Who made this the way it is? Where did it come from? So I'm going to tell you guys because I got on the internet and I started searching. Now, even when I was reading about this, I was like, how did it go from this to what it is today? Because do you think that if the ancient Romans could look at us in 2023, they would be like, that's not how it was supposed to happen? So Valentine's Day started back in ancient Roman times. It was like 200, 300 BC, something crazy like that. And they used to celebrate the passage going from winter to spring to like celebrate the new life and like new growth. You know, we get all these beautiful flowers, things are blossoming, and you know, we have all these trees, the leaves are starting to grow back. On February 13th, 14th, and 15th, to my understanding, they had this festival, I guess. It was like the celebration of the arrival of spring. I can't remember the name. It was like I'm butchering it, I'm sure. I'll put it down here so you guys can properly see what it was called. But it was this festival that they would have. And they would sacrifice goats and dogs, and they would take the skins of those animals and then they would whip women with it. Like, Why is it us? Why is it always us that this has to happen to? I think if this were to happen in today's times, we would look at this and be like, what the hell is going on? They would take goats and dogs, they would slaughter them, skin them, and then they would line these women up. And women, it would just be women like lined up, and they would whip them, and it was supposed to promote fertility. I imagine this in like today's times, and I'm like, what if it was like now 2023 and say like each neighborhood just had a festival and like all the women in the houses, I think about like my street and I'm like, what if all the women on my street just lined up naked and then they whip us with these animal skins? It just, okay, I know I'm like laughing and maybe I'm being a little insensitive to the culture, but I just think about like, what if that were to go down in like today's times? Like, how would that go? I don't know the correlation between the two, but that's what they did. Also at this festival, they used to do like a little kind of matchmaker situation. I don't know who was in charge, but whoever was in charge would pair them up. So it'd be a guy over here, a girl over here, and then somebody would be like, you two get together. And they would get together for the remainder of the festival. And it's like, they were each other's booze, okay? It was like, you're my man, I'm your woman, and we're together, okay? We're together. A lot of times, eventually they'd end up getting married. Now, I couldn't find if they got married at the festival or if it was just like a little matchmaking situation and they got together then and it ended up marriage was a result later on after they were together for, I'm not really sure. However, it was like, matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match.
Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match.
Oh, also everybody was naked. Yeah. This was a nude festival. Okay, nobody wore clothes. This kind of started to die out over time. Like when Christianity came around, it kind of started to die out. And like as religion came into effect, this festival was frowned upon. Okay, there was no more running naked. There was no more whipping of the women. No more picking a name out of a jar and running off and getting married. Like that was just a big no-no. They weren't doing that anymore. So the festival eventually ended up dying out. Okay, so then comes St. Valentine, the head honcho, the big cheese. We have a whole freaking holiday named after him. And he was a very well-known priest during this time. And he was most well-known for matching up couples and marrying them during a time when marriage was, I can't remember if it was outlawed or it was banned at the time because the emperor at that moment didn't want men to get married because he was trying to increase his army. So he said, no more marriages. I need soldiers. So nobody could get married during this time. Well, he used to match couples up in secret and marry them. So he's like a man after my own heart. He loves love. He wants to see these people being happy. Forget the army. Nobody cares about a war, okay? Love is all that matters. He finds out what St. Valentine is doing and he went behind his back. He's marrying people. His whole theory behind marriage was that he thought that soldiers would be better as unmarried men. So he didn't want a lot of married men because I guess he thought that men who were married wouldn't fight as hard for the army or during war because they would be worried about their families and they wanted to get back home. They weren't ready to like give it their all and like die for their country. And he finds out that St. Valentine is marrying people behind his back. He loses his shit, okay? He is pissed. He's like, hey, you're not listening to me. You're defying my orders. Jail. And he puts him in jail. Yeah, he was imprisoned. You have to remember that Claudius wasn't a fan of Christianity. Okay, so St. Valentine was a priest. So not only was he performing Christian marriages, but he was prosecuting the church at the time, and he was not a fan of that. So he finds St. Valentine, he's defying his orders, jail. A Roman prison back in this time probably was fun. So there was this gentleman. His name, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's Asterius. My understanding of what I read was he was kind of like a juror. So he was supposed to be like, hey, this guy's guilty or this guy is innocent. And that was that. So they're in prison. He meets this Asterius, this juror, if you will. Asterius is like, hey, let's make a deal. I have a blind daughter. If you can make her see, I'll get you out of prison. I can only imagine that Valentine was probably like, what the fuck? How the hell am I supposed to make that happen? So it is said that he goes to the daughter, he prays over her, and she gets her vision back. Just like that. Asterius loses his shit. Okay, he was an instant believer. He not only helped Valentine get out of prison, but him, his entire family, his staff, all get baptized like immediately. They're believers. They just witnessed a miracle happen right before their eyes. He does whatever. He's like, Valentine, I have your back, dog. So he lets him out of prison and he lets all the Christian prisoners out of jail. Valentine gets out of jail. He's a free man. He's doing God's work, okay? He's spreading the Christian religion. He's spreading his faith. He's trying to help people see the light of Christianity, okay? He loves his faith. He's a good man. He's like, hey, you guys, I just want to spread the love of God and let's all join Christianity. So he's out spreading his word. Claudius finds out again, and he is fucking pissed. Valentine is taken to Claudius, and Claudius is like, yo, this is not the first, but this is the second. I mean, who knows? Maybe we're on the third, fourth betrayal. He's not following what the government wants him to do. He's not following his leader. It's actually said that Claudius really liked him. Like, he really took a liking to him. He kind of like connected on a level, and he really liked him. Like, he had a feel for him. They kind of became like friends, I guess. But then Valentine tries to convert him to Christianity, and that's when Claudius is like, yo, you cross the line, you gotta go. He ends up telling him, hey, I'm gonna sign your death sentence. Unless you renounce being a Christian, you've gotta renounce your religion or you're gonna die. And Valentine is the realist. He's like, no, I'm not renouncing anything. This is what I believe in. This is my faith, and I will die for my faith. So he ends up dying. The people see him as a martyr for the Christian religion. And the way that he died was so brutal. He sentenced that he had to get beaten with rocks and stones, then with clubs, and then he had to get beheaded. He actually, that was like the final, like they cut his head off and like he was done. Now you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with the Valentine's Day card? On the morning of his execution, he sends a note to Asterius' daughter, and I don't know what was in the note. I couldn't find that, but what he did sign it was your Valentine, and that is kind of what started the Valentine's Day card. Isn't that so interesting? I just think about these things that happen in history, and it just blows my mind. I forgot a very, very important fact. The whole reason this day exists is he was actually executed on, you guessed it, February 14th. Mind blown. It's also said that poets like Shakespeare and Geoffrey Chaucer, I think that's how you pronounce his name, they started romanticizing Valentine's Day, and they would write it in their poetry and in their writings, and eventually it made its way across different countries and into the Western world, and it eventually started becoming what it is today. I'm sure a lot of you are aware that flowers are a big thing in Valentine's Day, right? Like, we all love getting flowers. It said that the whole thing with flowers started back in the 17th century, and that men would give women flowers for Valentine's Day because roses are the flower of love. Men started giving women roses on Valentine's Day to show their love for them. Remember what I said about how before St. Valentine was executed, he wrote a note to the blind daughter and he signed it, your Valentine? Back in the early 1400s, there was this duke, the Duke Charles of Orleans, and his wife was in prison. She was actually in prison on Valentine's Day. So he wrote her a love letter wanting to wish her happy Valentine's Day, I presume. And that is kind of what started or really popularized and like normalized sending cards to your lover. This Charles guy kind of sparked the whole card thing. Like, he was writing a sweet love letter to his wife. She was in prison. He just wanted her to know that he was there. He was like, baby, I'm here. It's Valentine's Day and I'm thinking about you. Now, in like the 1600s, I read that a lot of religious leaders didn't like Valentine's Day. I don't really know the correlation of why, if it had something to do with Saint Valentine and him being I don't really know. Okay, I couldn't really find a lot about that. However, by the early 19th century, Valentine's Day cards were like all the rage. Okay, they were a thing. In fact, Hallmark was the first one to produce Valentine's Day cards. And I'm assuming that's where that saying comes from, that Valentine's Day is a Hallmark holiday. It just clicked. And from there, it just took off. People started doing chocolate. They started doing the stuffed animals, the jewelry. It's mind-blowing how like one guy had this ripple effect that made this whole thing so many years later. Anyways, it's just fascinating to me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other like random things you want to know about, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I thought you found it interesting or just somewhat like entertaining to a point where it's like, yeah, I never knew that, and now I do, because same. Make sure you subscribe before you go. Hit the notifications so you don't miss any of my videos, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!